Hello, my name is Daniel Allerton. Today I will be refuting the claim that California policies promoting clean energy are inadequate. Now, the advocate supports this claim with two secondary claims. The first of these being existing past and present government policies have failed to produce 100% RPS, which means Renewable Portfolio Standard. It's a regulation for renewable energy. And the second supporting is that the SB 100, which is a bill, will fail to accomplish the job of reducing RPS in California over time. Now first, I'm going to take a dig at the main claim is that the advocate fails to acknowledge the context of SB 100 and why it's trying to promote clean energy is because SB 100 isn't some arbitrary rule that they set of just a random goal. It's actually an adjustment to goals that have been in place. The advocate phrases SB 100 as if it's just some random thing that sets a arbitrary goal for the state to try and follow, but it's actually an adjustment. The state of California, according to the LA Times, has been setting these goals since the early 2000s. In 2002, California enacted the first target, which was for 2017. The original target was a 20% RPS, and after a couple of years, it was pretty clear that California was going to hit this, so they adjusted it. And SB 100 is just another adjustment. It's because the state of California is actually far ahead of schedule. That in 2002, like I mentioned, the LA Times says that just then they had 12% and they assumed, oh, if we're going at this pace, we'll hit 20 in 2017. Well, in 2017, the state of California actually hit 30%. And so the state of California has been far ahead of schedule. SB 100 is just the state adjusting that to its pace, and it's not an arbitrary rule that the advocate claims. The advocate didn't properly analyze the source of SB 100. And for me, I took a look at the actual bill text, and it even states itself it's an adjustment of setting new rules. Now, farther into that, it also invalidates their second claim that it will fail as reducing RPS because the advocate's claim does not the 100%. The goal is 100%. It does the actual 100% 2045 standard is not 100% renewable. It's actually non-carbon. And this could have been a very important thing to focus on. Is it's not a extremely arbitrary hard standard to hit. It's just that by 2045 they say that they want non-carbon, and so the state is adjusting as it needs to based on its own expectations. And the advocate's saying that the existing policies of the first claim, that the existing policies have failed to produce an RPS, it's a red herring because the whole point of SB 100 and legislation like it is to work towards it. Saying that they haven't reached it yet, it's the whole point that they haven't reached it yet. They're trying to go towards it. It's a red herring, and it's a bit of circular reasoning by saying this hasn't been hit and so it's not successful, and because it's not successful they're not hitting it. It's circular and it doesn't really do anything to help their argument. The advocate also cites some statistics about clean air and clean energy cars as a way of saying that the state does not encourage moving to clean energy, but their figures are really skewed and inaccurate. They claim that the cheapest car that runs on electricity is 29 grand, and that the government rebates only go up to 2.5. Well, when I pulled from the EPA and from a third-party source about for buying and selling cars, is that the actual lowest price, it is a smart car. It's an electric smart car and costs approximately 23 grand, and that's without the rebate. With the government rebate, it gets a $7,500 rebate because it's all electric, and that comes below 19 grand. And this also contradicts their claim about being electric cars being outclassed by cheaper Toyotas and Hondas, something they don't cite specific cars, and they don't cite the specific original car they based their $29,000 thing off of. So one, their numbers are wrong, and two, they don't account for the different varieties of, say, the different rebates you get from a hybrid versus an electric, and it's just a really big hole in the reasoning. And the advocate also creates, in going on about how California is failing to promote renewable energy, they create a false dichotomy between wind and solar, failing to acknowledge the largest producer of renewable energy in California right now, which is hydroelectric. There are huge power plants all around the state that produce energy, and the advocate doesn't acknowledge these and creates a false dichotomy by saying on a cloudy day there's no solar, on a day with no wind there's no wind power, when those don't affect hydroelectric. And according to the state of California itself, as of 2017, 21% of the total generation was from hydro, which is up from 14% in the previous year. So again, California is claiming that the clean energy policies are inadequate, is inaccurate because California has been showing to producing more and more renewable energy over time, and because of that have been adjusting their standards through legislation like SB 100, and the advocate fails to prove their point with holes in their reasoning, misrepresented data, circular reasoning, and irrelevant thesis in saying that it hasn't been reached yet, and by a false dichotomy with the wind and the solar. Thank you.
All right, you preview the advocate's claim pretty clearly, but you've got a whole separate counter argument that's built in at the beginning, suggesting that the context has been ignored, and that's going to alter the way that we look at the argument subsequently. And I thought you did a pretty good job explaining that, showing that these goals are being adjusted constantly, that this is just the latest adjustment in the goals, that in fact we are ahead of where the goals suggested we would be, and that we're actually moving them up. And we're on a pace to do just fine with these kinds of changes. I thought that that was pretty effective, and it is a context argument that works well in minimizing the importance of the advocate's overall claim. On the first point, when you suggest that it's a red herring, I thought you had a pretty good explanation about how this is circular reasoning, that that we have these goals to meet this, and we haven't met the goal yet means that it's failing. It kind of defeats the purpose of having a goal. I thought you explained that pretty clearly. The argument about the cars, I'm not exactly sure how the advocate's argument advanced their point. I'm not exactly sure how your argument minimizes their point, except that it is a direct counterclaim to some statistics and some data that the advocate apparently was suggesting. So, that there are cars that meet these requirements, that are available for relatively low prices, and I guess that is an important part of the argument, but I didn't think it was explained very well why it is that I should care about that particular information. On the second point, this argument about a false dichotomy, I thought that was an interesting idea, going after the notion of the solar and the wind energy. That's what the advocate's doing, and you point out, a substantial portion comes from hydroelectricity, and there's no discussion of that. Those are definitely clean. We may have cleaner technologies also, maybe not completely clean, that the state is utilizing, or they're decreasing our dependence on the ones that are polluting. By the way, one of the ways that we decrease our dependence on the ones that are polluting is we export that and have Utah produce all of our electricity, so the generating plants aren't here making us polluted, but we get the electricity in from that. I think that might be one of the ways that they cheat on those figures, but that's for the third refutation. That's for the refutation of the refutation, just as an example of something. And I thought it was presented pretty effectively as well. Thank you.